The massive space station Harmony hung against the backdrop of stars like a gleaming jewel. Its 12 rotating rings housed representatives from 27 different species that made up the Galactic Council of Allied Species. For over 2,000 years, this body had maintained peace across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Today, that peace was threatened. Inside the Grand Council chamber, holographic displays showed worlds burning. The blue-scaled Medusan representative gestured with 4 arms as she addressed her colleagues. "These attacks by the Vraxian Empire cannot be ignored any longer," she said. 3 more peaceful species have been conquered in the past month alone. The Vraxians were an insectoid species from the Outer Rim. Until recently, they had kept to themselves, developing their technology in isolation. Now they had emerged with unexpected aggression, their ships cutting through defensive systems like they were nothing. Commander Lisa Wright stood at the center of the chamber. As the head of Galactic Intelligence, she rarely attended council meetings in person. Her presence today underscored the severity of the situation. "The Vraxians are not just conquering," Wright explained. "They're performing genetic experiments on captured populations. We believe they're looking for compatible DNA sequences for reasons we don't yet understand." The chamber filled with murmurs of disgust and concern. The Alturian representative, a gas-filled transparent being, pulsed with agitation. "What do you suggest we do, Commander? The Council was formed to maintain peace, not wage war." Wright pulled up more holographic data. "The Vraxian vessels have technical capabilities beyond anything we've encountered. Standard Council defense fleets would be outmatched 3-1. The Council split into factions almost immediately. Half the representatives argued for immediate military action, while the others advocated for diplomatic solutions. The debate grew heated. "If we attack, we risk all-out war across the galaxy," warned the jellyfish-like Hadronian ambassador. "If we do nothing, we condemn countless innocent species to extinction," countered the mechanical representative of the Siberians. The debate continued for hours with no resolution in sight. The ancient protocols of the Council required consensus, and consensus seemed impossible. Wright watched with growing frustration. Every minute they spent arguing was another minute the Vraxians advanced. The Council leader, High Minister Jean, raised his crystalline hands for silence. "We will adjourn for 1 standard day to consult with our respective governments. This threat requires—" A loud alarm cut him off. The central holographic display shifted to show the space around Harmony. A vessel approached at impossible speeds. "What is that?" demanded John. The security chief, a tall avian being named Krek, consulted his screens. "Unknown vessel, not matching any known configuration in Council records." Wright moved to Krek's station. "Those energy signatures, are those weapons?" Krek nodded grimly. "More weapons than I've ever seen on a ship that size." The chamber erupted in panic. The Harmony station had defenses, but they weren't designed to repel a serious attack. The Council had enemies, certainly, but none had ever dared strike at Harmony itself. "Attempt communication," ordered John. Krek sent standard greeting protocols on all frequencies. The unknown vessel continued its approach, showing no signs of slowing. "No response," Krek reported. "It will reach our defensive perimeter in 5 minutes." Wright studied the vessel's approach vector. "It's not on an attack run. If they wanted to fire on us, they'd be adjusting their position." "Perhaps they want to ram us?" suggested a nervous representative. "At that speed, they'd destroy themselves, along with half the station," Wright said. The security teams took positions throughout Harmony. Council representatives were escorted to secure areas. Wright stayed in the command center with Jean and Krek, watching the approaching ship with a mixture of fear and curiosity. 2 minutes to perimeter," reported Krek. The vessel finally decelerated, the energy output from its engines temporarily overwhelming Harmony's sensors. When the readings cleared, the ship had taken position just outside the defensive grid. "Now, they're hailing us," Krek said with surprise. "Put it through," ordered John. The main screen filled with the image of a being none of them had seen before. It stood upright on 2 legs with 2 arms and a head that had hair on the top. Its skin was a light brown color, and it wore some kind of uniform with insignias none of them recognized. "This is Captain Alan Murphy of the United Earth Alliance, Vessel Defiant," the being said in perfect standard galactic. "Sorry about the dramatic entrance, we're here to help. Sorry we're late." The command center fell silent. Wright was the first to find her voice. "United Earth Alliance? Earth is a pre-FTL civilization in the isolation zone. They shouldn't have this technology." Captain Murphy smiled, showing white teeth. "That's what we wanted you to think. Mind if we dock? We have information about the Vraxians you're going to want to hear." John looked to Wright and Kreck for guidance. Wright studied the human on the screen. His uniform had dark stains on it. Blood, she realized. And his face showed signs of recent combat, a cut above one eye, bruising on one cheek. "You've engaged the Vraxians?" Wright asked. Murphy nodded. 3 days ago, they tried to establish a foothold in our system. It didn't work out well for them. This claim seemed impossible. No council race had successfully defended against a Vraxian attack. Yet this human captain spoke of it casually. "Allow them to dock," Wright advised John, "but with full security protocols." 30 minutes later, Captain Murphy and another human identified as Diplomatic Officer Diane Powell stood in the council chamber. Both wore the same blood-stained uniforms they'd been seen in on the view screen. Up close, Wright could see they were exhausted. They had the look of warriors who had come directly from battle. "I understand you have questions," Murphy said, addressing the gathered council representatives who had returned from shelter. To answer the most obvious one, yes, humans have been aware of the wider galactic community for centuries. We intercepted your communications and chose to observe rather than announce ourselves. You deceived the council, accused the Alturian representative. Powell stepped forward. We preferred to call it independent development. Earth has a long history of conflict. When we discovered we weren't alone in the universe, we decided to build our strength before making contact. "Why reveal yourselves now?" asked Wright. Murphy's expression turned grim. "Because the Vraxians found us anyway. They attacked a research outpost on the edge of our solar system. We fought back." He nodded to Powell, who activated a holographic projector she carried. It displayed footage of a space battle, human vessels smaller than the Vraxian ships but more numerous, fighting with unexpected effectiveness. The humans used tactics the council races had never considered, separating Vraxian vessels from each other, focusing fire on specific vulnerabilities. "You defeated them," Wright said with disbelief. "This group, yes," Murphy confirmed, "but there will be more. We tracked their communications before destroying their command ship. The Vraxians are preparing a major offensive against multiple council worlds." The council chamber erupted in voices. Some demanded proof, others wanted to know more about human weapons technology, and still others questioned whether these humans could be trusted at all. John called for order. "Captain Murphy, your arrival is unprecedented. You understand our caution?" Murphy nodded. "Completely. But right now, caution is a luxury none of us can afford. We're here to propose an alliance." "Why should we trust you?" demanded the Siberian's mechanical representative. "You shouldn't," Murphy said bluntly. "Trust needs to be earned. But right now we're the only ones who've successfully fought the Vraxians and lived to talk about it." Powell added, "We humans have a saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We don't have to like each other to work together." Wright studied the two humans. Everything about their sudden appearance defied council protocols. They had arrived unannounced, their ship bristling with weapons. Their uniforms were still stained with blood. They hadn't even taken time to clean up before meeting the most powerful governing body in the galaxy. And yet they might be exactly what the council needed. "I recommend we hear them out," Wright said to John. "The Vraxian threat is real. If the humans have found a way to fight them effectively, we need that knowledge." John nodded slowly. "Captain Murphy, Diplomatic Officer Powell, the council will hear your proposal. But be warned, humans are unknown to us. Your every word and action will be carefully evaluated." Murphy smiled again, but this time there was no warmth in it. "Fair enough, we humans are used to proving ourselves. Now about those Vraxians. Captain Alan Murphy stood at the center of the council chamber, his stance relaxed but alert. The representatives of 27 alien species watched him with emotions ranging from curiosity to outright suspicion. The blood on his uniform had dried to a dark brown, a reminder of how recently he had been in combat. "Let me be clear about the Vraxian threat," Murphy said. "They're not just conquerors. They're desperate, and that makes them dangerous." Diane Powell activated the holographic display again. This time it showed close-up images of Vraxian biology. The insectoid aliens had 6 limbs, iridescent exoskeletons, and compound eyes that glowed with an eerie blue light. "Our scientists studied tissue samples from the Vraxians we defeated," Powell explained. "They found genetic degradation at the cellular level. The Vraxians are dying as a species." This revelation caused a stir among the council. The Medusan representative spoke up. "You're suggesting their aggression is driven by survival?" "Exactly," Murphy confirmed. "They're not expanding for power or resources. They're hunting for compatible DNA to save themselves from extinction." Commander Lisa Wright approached the holographic display, studying the data with a critical eye. "How did humans discover this when council scientists missed it?" she asked. Powell smiled slightly. "We have a different perspective. Council races have enjoyed relative peace for centuries. Humans have been at war with each other for most of our history. We understand the desperate measures species will take to survive." High Minister Jean raised a hand for attention. "This information is valuable, but it doesn't explain your technological advancement. Earth was categorized as a pre-FTL civilization less than a century ago." "That's because we wanted it that way," Murphy replied. "When we detected your observation probes, we fed them false data. We've had faster-than-light capability for over 150 years. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. The idea that a supposedly primitive species had not only detected their monitoring systems, but had deliberately deceived them, was unprecedented. "Impossible," declared the avian security chief Krek. "Our observation protocols are flawless." "Nothing is flawless," Murphy countered. "Especially when you're looking for what you expect to see rather than what's actually there." The mechanical representative of the Siberians made a sound like gears grinding. "This deception suggests humans cannot be trusted." Powell stepped forward. "Or it suggests we're excellent at strategic thinking, a quality you'll need against the Vraxians." The tension in the room grew palpable. Wright watched the 2 humans carefully, noting how they handled themselves under pressure. Despite being outnumbered and in unfamiliar territory, they showed no signs of intimidation. "I believe we need more than words," Wright said finally. "Captain Murphy, you claim to have defeated Vraxian forces. I request permission to inspect your vessel and verify your capabilities." Murphy nodded. "Granted, but I suggest we move quickly. The Vraxians we encountered sent distress signals before we destroyed them. Their fleet will know Earth has engaged them by now." Jan conferred quietly with several other council members before responding. "Commander Wright will lead a delegation to examine your ship. In the meantime, we request your chief engineer join us to discuss your technology in more detail." "Of course," Powell said, activating her wrist communicator. "Defiant, this is Powell. Send Martinez over right away." An hour later, Frank Martinez stood before the council's science committee. The stocky engineer had brought samples of human technology, propulsion, components, weapon systems, and communications devices. "I want to clear up a misconception," Martinez began. "Humans don't have superior technology to the council in most areas. We've just focused our development differently." He displayed a schematic of a human engine core. "Your ships are faster in normal space. They're more energy efficient too. But our jump drives allow shorter cooldown periods between FTL transitions." The Alturian representative pulsed with interest. "How did humans develop in such isolation?" Martinez laughed. "We weren't isolated, we were cautious. Earth has a saying, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. We listened to council communications for decades before deciding how to proceed. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiant, Commander Wright led a team of Council security specialists through the human vessel. The ship was smaller than comparable Council cruisers, but packed with weaponry and defensive systems. The interior showed clear signs of recent battle. Repair crews worked throughout the ship, sealing breaches and replacing damaged components. "Your crew seems remarkably calm considering you just fought a battle," Wright observed. The ship's second officer, Lieutenant Grace Lee, shrugged as she led them through the corridor. "This isn't our first rodeo." Wright looked confused at the idiom, and Lee clarified. "Sorry, I mean this isn't our first combat situation. Humans maintain a constant state of military readiness. We've been preparing for threats like the Vraxians for generations." In the ship's medical bay, Wright met Dr. Olivia Grant, the ship's chief medical officer. Grant was treating wounded crew members while simultaneously analyzing Vraxian tissue samples. "Doctor, your captain claims to have found a weakness in Vraxian biology," Wright said. "Can you elaborate?" Grant gestured to a microscope-like device. "Take a look. The Vraxians have been genetically engineering themselves for centuries, trying to become the perfect species. But they've created a fatal flaw." Wright peered into the device and saw cellular structures breaking down in real time. "Their enhanced immune systems are attacking their own genetic code," Grant explained. "It's accelerating with each generation. That's why they're harvesting DNA from other species. They're desperate for stable genetic material to incorporate into their own." "How did you discover this so quickly?" Wright asked, impressed despite her reservations. "Human medical science has always focused on adaptability," Grant said. "We've had to treat thousands of different injuries and diseases throughout our history. We look for patterns others might miss." Back in the council chamber, Murphy and Powell were growing impatient with the diplomatic delays. The Vraxians wouldn't wait while the council deliberated. "We need to make a decision," Murphy said firmly. "Every moment we spend talking is another moment the Vraxians gain ground." The jellyfish-like Hadronian ambassador waved its tentacles dismissively. "The council cannot be rushed. Our protocols require—" Murphy cut him off. "With respect, Ambassador, protocols won't save anyone when the Vraxians arrive. They're coming, and they won't wait for you to finish your debates." Powell placed a hand on Murphy's arm, a subtle signal to moderate his tone. She addressed the council in a calmer voice. "We understand your caution. Humans appeared without warning. We have blood on our uniforms and weapons on our ship. We broke countless protocols just by being here. From your perspective, we must seem like barbarians." She paused, looking at each council member in turn. "But sometimes survival requires setting aside formality. Humanity learned this lesson through centuries of conflict. We've nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times, but we've always found a way to survive." Wright returned to the chamber just as Powell finished speaking. Her assessment of the human ship and crew had changed her perspective. She addressed John directly. "High Minister, I've completed my inspection. The humans have indeed engaged the Vraxians in combat and prevailed. Their tactical capabilities exceed our current defense protocols." John considered this information carefully. "What do you recommend, Commander?" Wright looked at Murphy and Powell. "I recommend we listen to what they have to say. The humans have experience we lack. And right now, experience matters more than protocol." Murphy nodded in appreciation. He stepped forward to address the council again, his expression grave. "Throughout human history, we've shown up late to many conflicts. We're often bloody when we arrive, and we're rarely invited. But we've learned something important. Sometimes being polite matters less than being present when you're needed." Activated a tactical display showing Vraxian fleet movements. "And right now you need us, just as we need you. So let's stop talking about trust and start talking about survival." The council chamber had been converted into a war room. Holographic displays showed star systems, fleet positions, and potential Vraxian targets. After hours of debate, the council had finally agreed to form a joint task force with the humans. Not everyone was happy about this decision. The representative from the insect-like Tellarites, Ambassador Kazutk, stood with his forearms crossed in clear disapproval. "The humans are no better than the Vraxians," Kazutk chittered to a group of like-minded representatives. "They deceived us for centuries. They come to us covered in the blood of their enemies. They speak of war before diplomacy. They are barbarians. Commander Lisa Wright overheard these remarks as she entered the chamber with Captain Murphy. She noticed Murphy's jaw tighten, but he showed remarkable restraint. Ambassador Kuzitk, Wright said, your concerns are noted. But right now, barbarians who can fight are exactly what we need. Murphy stepped forward, addressing the gathering. I understand your reservations. If our positions were reversed, I'd feel the same way. But the Vraxians don't care about our differences. They see all of us as resources to be harvested. Hi, Minister Jean called the meeting to order. Our long-range sensors have detected Vraxian fleet movements. They appear to be gathering forces for a major offensive. Dr. Olivia Grant had joined the Council's science team. She activated a display showing Vraxian biology compared to various Council species. We've identified why the Vraxians are targeting specific planets, she explained. They're looking for genetic sequences compatible with their own. The genetic disorder attacking their cells requires very specific DNA to repair. The Medusan representative tilted her blue-scaled head. Which species are most compatible? Grant pulled up more data. Based on our analysis, the Medusans, Hadronian, and 3 other Council races have the highest compatibility. Humans are also on that list, which is why they attacked our outpost. This revelation caused a stir. The targeted species now understood they faced not just conquest, but extinction. The Vraxians don't just want territory, Grant continued. They need genetic material from living subjects. They can't use the dead. That's why they capture rather than kill when possible. How much time do we have? Asked Wright. Frank Martinez, who had been working with Council engineers, joined the conversation. Based on our tracking of their communications, we estimate 3 weeks before they launch their main offensive. But they're sending advanced scouts now. Captain Murphy nodded. That matches our intelligence. The Vraxians are methodical. They'll test our defenses before committing their main fleet. Kzetk made a dismissive sound. And why should we trust human intelligence? You who have lied to us for so long? Murphy turned to face the Tellarite directly. Ambassador, you're right to question us, but ask yourself this. What do we gain by deceiving you now? Earth is just as much a target as your worlds. Diane Powell added, the United Earth Alliance could have stayed hidden. We could have defended our system alone. Instead, we're here, offering to fight alongside you. The sentiment in the room began to shift. Even some who had been skeptical now considered the humans' actions in a different light. Wright seized the moment. I propose we send joint scout teams to the projected Vraxian approach vectors. Human tactical knowledge combined with Council technology could give us an advantage. Agreed, said Jean. But we need more than defensive measures. We need a strategy to push back the Vraxian advance. Murphy exchanged glances with Powell. We may have an idea about that. In the following days, human officers worked alongside Council military leaders to develop a coordinated response. The first test came sooner than expected when a Vraxian scout force entered the Proxima system, home to a Council research outpost. The UES Defiant and 3 Council vessels intercepted the Vraxian ships. From the war room on Harmony, Wright and the Council watched the engagement through secure feeds. The Council ships moved in standard formation, their energy shields activated as they approached the Vraxians. The Defiant, however, powered down, all non-essential systems and drifted, appearing disabled. What are they doing? Demanded Kuzitk. The human ship is not engaging. Wright smiled slightly. Just watch. The Vraxians focused their attack on the Council vessels, not recognizing the trap. When they moved past the seemingly disabled Defiant, the human ship suddenly powered up and attacked from behind, targeting specific points on the Vraxian ship's hulls. Those are the weak spots Dr. Grant identified, Wright explained. The points where their biological components interface with their technology. The battle was brief but decisive. The Vraxian scouts were destroyed with minimal damage to the Allied forces. An impressive tactic, admitted Jean. The humans understand deception as a weapon. We've had plenty of practice, Powell said. Both using it and recognizing when it's being used against us. The success at Proxima boosted morale, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The main Vraxian fleet would not be so easily tricked. In the days that followed, Murphy and Powell worked to bridge the cultural gap between humans and the council races. During a rare quiet moment, they sat with Wright in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Your crew adapts quickly," Wright remarked. "They've integrated with our teams better than I expected." Murphy smiled. "Humans are good at adapting. It's how we've survived. Yet you've kept yourselves isolated from the galactic community," Wright said. "Why reveal yourselves now? You could have warned us about the Vraxians without exposing Earth's location or capabilities." Powell and Murphy exchanged glances. "We debated that," Powell admitted. "But a warning without action would have accomplished little. The council was deadlocked. You needed more than information. You needed allies who could fight." Wright nodded slowly. "Some still see your arrival as opportunistic. They believe you're using this crisis to force your way into galactic politics." "And what do you believe, Commander?" Murphy asked. Before Wright could answer, alarms sounded throughout the station. They rushed back to the war room where Krek was coordinating the response to an urgent transmission. "We've lost contact with the Medusan colony in the Rigel system," he reported. "Long-range sensors detect multiple Vraxian signatures." The room fell silent. Rigel wasn't an outpost, it was a fully developed colony with millions of inhabitants. "They're moving faster than we anticipated," Martinez said, studying the data. "This isn't just a raid, it's the beginning of their main offensive." Murphy stepped forward. "Minister Jean, the time for planning is over. We need to deploy our forces now." John looked at the faces around him, council representatives who had known peace for generations, now confronted with war, and the humans, who had come to them bloody from battle, ready to fight again. "Very well," John said. "Deploy the joint fleet to Rigel immediately, and may whatever powers exist in this universe grant us victory." As the leaders dispersed to their tasks, Wright found herself walking alongside Murphy. "You never got my answer," she said. "About why I think you humans came." Murphy raised an eyebrow. "And?" "I think you're exactly what you appear to be," Wright said. "Late, bloody, and uninvited, but also exactly what we needed." Murphy smiled grimly. "Let's hope that's enough." The Rigel system burned. 6 inhabited worlds, once peaceful centers of Medusan culture, had been transformed into Vraxian fortresses in less than a week. The joint fleet arrived too late to prevent the initial invasion, but not too late to mount a response. On the command ship of the Council fleet, the Unity, Captain Murphy stood before a gathering of military leaders from both human and Council forces. The mood was grim. "The situation is worse than we expected," Murphy said, pointing to tactical displays. "The Vraxians have established ground bases on all 6 worlds. They've begun processing captured Medusans for genetic material." The Medusan commander, General Thrix, shuddered visibly. Her blue scales darkened with emotion. "How many of my people have they taken?" Dr. Olivia Grant spoke up from her station. "Based on our scans, approximately 200,000. They're being held in these structures." She highlighted several massive complexes on the display. General Sandra Miller, who had arrived with reinforcements from Earth, studied the tactical situation. Miller was a veteran of numerous conflicts, her weathered face showing the experience of decades of warfare. "The Council's original plan won't work," Miller said bluntly. "A methodical campaign would take years. The Vraxians will have harvested every compatible Medusan long before then." The jellyfish-like Hadronian admiral waved his tentacles in agitation. "What alternative do we have? Our forces are outnumbered. The Vraxian defenses are too strong for a direct assault." Miller smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "When facing superior numbers, humans have learned to use perception as a weapon. We don't need to be stronger than the enemy. We just need them to think we are." She stepped forward and adjusted the display. "I propose simultaneous strikes on all 6 worlds. Small, fast-moving teams hitting multiple targets at once, creating the impression of a much larger force." The Council military leaders looked skeptical. The avian commander, Krek, clicked his beak. "That would spread our forces too thin. The risk of failure would be extreme." So is the risk of doing nothing, Miller countered. Humans have always excelled at making the enemy believe we're stronger than we actually are. Murphy nodded in agreement. General Miller's strategy has worked for us before. Against the Vraxians, conventional tactics have already failed. We need to try something unexpected. After hours of debate, the Joint Command reluctantly agreed to Miller's plan. The combined fleet separated into 6 battle groups, each assigned to one of the occupied worlds. The UES Intrepid, commanded by Captain Eric Summers, led the assault on the main Vraxian stronghold. The Intrepid was a newer vessel than the Defiant, specially designed for stealth operations. Summers had handpicked his crew from veterans of previous engagements with the Vraxians. As the battle groups moved into position, Dr. Grant made a breakthrough in her research. She contacted the command ship urgently. "I've identified the specific genetic sequence the Vraxians need," she reported. "It's not just compatible DNA. They're looking for a particular marker found in less than 10% of Medusans." "How does this help us?" asked Murphy. "It means they need to process a lot more captives to find what they need," Grant explained. "And it means we have time. They can't complete their project quickly, even with all the Medusans they've captured." This information gave the Allied forces new hope. The rescue of the captive Medusans became an equally important objective alongside defeating the Vraxian forces. The attack began at synchronized points across the Rigel system. Just as Miller had predicted, the Vraxians were unprepared for simultaneous assaults on all fronts. Their communication systems, designed for efficiency rather than security, became overloaded with distress signals. On the 3rd planet, Captain Summers led a daring raid on the main processing center. His team consisted of both human and council commandos, their strengths complementing each other. The humans provided tactical guidance while the council races contributed unique biological abilities and knowledge of Medusan physiology. "Remember, our primary goal is the captives," Summers told his team as they approached the facility. "The secondary goal is to gather intelligence on Vraxian operations." The raid initially went according to plan. The team breached the outer defenses, using council technology combined with human stealth tactics. They reached the central chamber where thousands of Medusans were held in stasis fields. "Begin the evacuation," Summers ordered. "Team 2, secure the data terminals." As they worked to free the captives, alarm systems suddenly activated. Vraxian warriors poured into the chamber from multiple entrances. "We've been compromised," reported Lieutenant Kim, Summers' second-in-command. "The Vraxians adapted to our signal jamming faster than expected." Summers made a quick decision. "Continue the evacuation. I'll buy you time." Despite his team's protests, Summers led a small group to hold the main entrance while the others escorted the freed Medusans to the transport vessels. The fighting was intense. The Vraxians, desperate to protect their genetic harvesting operation, fought with unexpected ferocity. In orbit above the planet, the battle raged between Allied ships and Vraxian vessels. The UES Intrepid coordinated the ground evacuation while engaging 3 Vraxian cruisers. Commander Wright, aboard the Unity, monitored the battles across all 6 worlds. Captain Summers' team has freed over 5,000 captives, but they're cut off from their extraction point. Murphy watched the tactical display with growing concern. "What's the status of the Intrepid?" "Taking heavy fire," Wright reported. "Shield integrity down to 30%. Aboard the Intrepid, Summers made it back to the bridge, wounded but still able to command. His uniform was torn and bloodied, one arm hanging useless at his side. "Status report," he demanded. "All rescued Medusans are aboard," his tactical officer reported. "But the Vraxian flagship has locked onto us. They're moving to cut off our escape route." Summers studied the tactical display. The massive Vraxian flagship was positioning itself between the Intrepid and the rest of the Allied fleet. Its weapon systems were charging for what would certainly be a devastating attack. "We can't outrun them, and we can't survive a direct hit from their main weapon," the tactical officer said grimly. Summers was silent for a moment. Then he straightened. Decision made. "Plot a direct course for the Vraxian flagship. Full power to engines." His crew looked at him in shock. The navigation officer spoke up. "Sir, that's a collision course." I'm aware, Lieutenant. Summers' voice was calm. Send this message to the fleet. We may have shown up late to this galaxy, but we're right on time for this fight. As the Intrepid accelerated toward the Vraxian flagship, Summers opened the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. It has been my honor to serve with you. Our mission is nearly complete. The captives we've rescued will live because of your courage. The Vraxian vessel attempted to evade, but it was too large to maneuver quickly. The Intrepid, smaller and more agile, adjusted its course to ensure impact. Across the system, Allied forces watched as the human vessel slammed into the Vraxian flagship at near light speed. The resulting explosion tore the Vraxian ship apart, creating a shockwave that disabled 2 nearby enemy cruisers. In the aftermath, the Vraxian forces fell into disarray. Without their flagship's coordination, their tactical advantage crumbled. The Allied fleet pressed forward, securing victory on 4 of the 6 worlds within hours. On the Unity, Murphy received the news of Summers' sacrifice with a grim expression. Send word to all battle groups. The Vraxians are in retreat. Push the advantage. Wright watched him carefully. Captain Summers was your friend. Murphy nodded once. He was, and he just showed the Council exactly what humans are willing to sacrifice for those we consider allies. The Battle of 6 Worlds, as it would later be known, marked the turning point in the war against the Vraxians. Though the cost had been high, the Allied forces had achieved something remarkable. They had pushed back an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. 3 months after the Battle of 6 Worlds, a new space station orbited at the edge of Council space. Unlike the elegant, ancient design of Harmony, this station was a blend of Council aesthetics and human practicality. They called it Unity. Representatives from all 27 Council species gathered in the main chamber. Today was historic. Humanity would officially join the Galactic Council of Allied Species. Commander Lisa Wright stood near the entrance, watching as delegates arrived. She had changed in the past months. The war against the Vraxians had left its mark on everyone, but also forged new bonds of respect and friendship. Quite a different atmosphere from the first time we met, said a familiar voice. Wright turned to see Captain Alan Murphy approaching. His uniform was clean and formal now, a far cry from the blood-stained battle dress he'd worn when they first met. The Council has come a long way, Wright agreed. Not many would have predicted this outcome when the Defiant first appeared on our sensors. Murphy smiled slightly. Humans have a talent for making dramatic entrances. The remaining Vraxian forces had retreated to their home systems after the Battle of 6 Worlds. The Allied fleet had secured the captured planets and rescued tens of thousands of captives. The war wasn't over, but the immediate crisis had passed, giving both sides time to regroup and plan. High Minister John took his position at the center of the chamber. Age and stress had dulled the shine of his crystalline form, but his voice remained strong. Today, we welcome a new member to our council, John announced. A species that challenged our assumptions and helped us when we needed it most. Ambassador Julie Peterson stepped forward. She had replaced Diane Powell as Earth's primary diplomatic representative. Powell had returned to Earth to coordinate the growing alliance between human and council scientific communities. The United Earth Alliance is honored to join this ancient and distinguished body, Peterson said. Though our introduction to galactic politics was unconventional, we hope our future relations will be marked by cooperation and mutual respect. There was polite laughter at her careful understatement. Everyone present remembered the shock of the Defiant's arrival and the initial suspicion that had greeted the humans. Ambassador Kezutk, who had been one of humanity's strongest critics, rose to speak. The Tellurite's chittering voice had a new tone of grudging respect. When humans first arrived, I called them barbarians, Kezutk admitted. I saw only their weapons and their bloodied uniforms. I failed to see their courage and determination. He made a formal gesture of respect toward Peterson. The Battle of 6 Worlds changed my perception. Captain Summers and his crew gave their lives to save people they had never met before. That is not the action of barbarians, but of warriors with honor. The formal ceremony continued with the signing of treaties and agreements. Earth would share its military expertise with the Council, while gaining access to Council technology and scientific knowledge. Special provisions were made to protect Earth's independence while integrating it into the broader galactic community. As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Olivia Grant entered the chamber with news that would change everything. Again, she approached Wright and Murphy, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. "We need to speak with the Council immediately," she said. "It's about the Vraxians." Minutes later, Grant stood before the assembled representatives, displaying her latest research findings. "We've been studying the genetic samples from the captured Vraxian facilities," she explained. "And we've made a breakthrough. The Vraxians' genetic degradation isn't natural. It was engineered." Murmurs of confusion spread through the chamber. Jean leaned forward. "What do you mean, Doctor?" "The specific pattern of degradation shows signs of deliberate modification," Grant said. "Someone genetically engineered the Vraxians to develop this fatal condition. It was designed to manifest after multiple generations, ensuring the entire species would be affected before they realized what was happening." "Who would do such a thing?" asked the Medusan representative. "And why?" Grant shook her head. "We don't know yet, but it explains their desperate aggression. They're not naturally expansionist, they're fighting for survival against what they perceive as biological warfare." This revelation stunned the Council. What they had seen as unprovoked Vraxian aggression now appeared in a different light, as the desperate actions of a species facing extinction. Murphy stepped forward. "This changes our approach. The Vraxians aren't just enemies to be defeated, they're victims of a crime. A crime they've responded to by committing atrocities against innocent worlds," Kizik pointed out. "True," Murphy acknowledged. "Their actions can't be excused, but they might be understood, and possibly prevented in the future." Dr. Paul Harris, who had been working with a team on Earth, joined the discussion via holographic link. "We believe we found a potential solution to the Vraxian genetic problem, one that doesn't require harvesting DNA from other species." The chamber fell silent as Harris explained. "By combining modified elements from human, Medusan, and Hadronian DNA, we can create a synthetic genetic sequence that would halt the degradation process. It won't undo the damage that's already been done, but it could prevent further deterioration." "Are you suggesting we help the Vraxians?" asked an incredulous council member. "After all they've done?" Ambassador Peterson responded, "We're suggesting we end this war permanently, not just by fighting but by removing its cause." Wright watched the reactions around the room. Some representatives were outraged at the idea of helping their enemies. Others saw the strategic advantage in turning a desperate foe into a potential ally. A week later, a small joint delegation traveled under heavy guard to the edge of Vraxian space. They brought with them Dr. Harris's research and a proposal for peace. The response was cautious, but not hostile. After generations of fighting for survival, even the proud Vraxians were willing to consider alternatives. 3 months after that, a Vraxian representative stood in the Unity Station's council chamber. Tall and insectoid, with iridescent wings, folded against its back, the ambassador spoke in carefully translated Standard Galactic. "My people have begun implementing the genetic treatment," the Vraxian reported. "Early results show promise. For the first time in generations, Vraxian children are being born without signs of cellular degradation." The ambassador turned to face the human delegation directly. "We still do not know who engineered this plague against our species, but we know who helped us find a cure. That will not be forgotten." As the formal meeting concluded, Wright found herself standing with Murphy and Peterson, watching the various species interact. The Vraxian ambassador was speaking with Dr. Harris, their conversation animated despite the translation delays. "When humans showed up to the council, we were late. Bloody and uninvited," Peterson remarked. "Now look at us, hosting peace talks between ancient enemies." Murphy nodded thoughtfully. "Throughout human history, we've been defined by conflict, but also by what comes after: rebuilding, reconciliation, finding ways forward when it seems Impossible. Perhaps that's what humanity brings to the galaxy, Wright suggested. Not just the ability to fight when necessary, but the vision to see beyond the fight. As they watched, more representatives joined the conversation between Harris and the Vraxian ambassador. Species that had been enemies just months before were now cautiously exploring possibilities for cooperation. The Council has existed for over 2,000 years, Wright said, but I think it's only beginning to understand its potential. Murphy smiled. Better late than never. That's another human specialty. Outside the station's windows, ships from dozens of worlds moved in carefully coordinated patterns. Human vessels flew alongside Council ships, their designs already beginning to influence each other. And at the edge of the formation, a single Vraxian cruiser maintained position, not as an enemy, but as a cautious observer. The galaxy was changing, and humanity, despite arriving late, bloody, and uninvited, was helping to shape that change.